Now, before we get any further with tracking, with logging, with measuring, with sending any more events to the Microsoft Azure platform, let's talk about one important topic. What is a session? So, what is a session in Microsoft Azure? Let's look at this sample. Let's say that we have a workbook called myworkbook3.xlsm. And this workbook, we have a resource open in Microsoft Azure Application Insights that is having its own instrumentation key, so that we know where to send our data. Now, let's say that we have 3 users that are using this application. User 1, for example, Joe, user 2, Amanda, and user 3, Carol. Now, let's say that Joe has opened our workbook 3 times. Now, the first time Joe has opened a workbook, this has triggered, or this has started a new session that we call session 1. And let's say that we have sent a workbook open event to our Microsoft Azure resource. Now, after that, Joe clicks on worksheet number 1, and we send to Azure worksheet 1 active event. After that, Joe has clicked on a button 1, and after button 1, he has clicked on a button 2, and we have also sent these 2 events to our Microsoft Azure resource. After that, an error occurred in the code, in the VBA code. And we have an error tracing in place in our VBA code, and we will send this error to the Microsoft Azure resource. And this all happened in this session 1. After that, Joe has again opened this workbook, and this has started a session number 2. We have sent a workbook open event to Microsoft Azure in this session 2, and also Joe has clicked on the worksheet number 5. After that, he has clicked on the button 23, and he has exited the workbook, and we have sent the workbook exit event to our Microsoft Azure resource. And in the third launch, when Joe opened the workbook 3 Excel workbook, Joe has opened. This has triggered the session number 3, and Joe has closed the workbook. This has triggered the end session, and the session 3 has ended. So we have 3 different sessions. We have one workbook, we have, for example, 3 users, and each of these users can use our applications. And each time a user starts our application, this is triggering a new session. And we should be able to track what this user is doing in our app by following the steps in the session. So each session is a new launch of our workbook. I hope that now it is clear what is a session. Now let's go and see how this is presented in our previous examples. We have created an Application Insights resource that we have called MyTest2, and we have sent a few events to our resource. Let's go to Sessions. Let's click on it. And here you can see that we have 14 sessions. Let's click on one session, and let's click on View More Insights. We have one user, 14 events. And if you take a look, each event is a new session. So in this case, we cannot track the path the user Joe has been using our application or has been using our workbook. But why is that? Let's go into our workbook. Let's minimize this and let's open our workbook. Now let's go into Developer tab, into Visual Basic, and let's take a look. For example, in this workbook, I will tell you that this class is handling these sessions. And a session start and a new session ID is provided each and every time we create a new instance of this class. So at this code line, CLS AI1 as new CLS AI, this class is triggering a new session and is also giving this session a new ID. Workbook Open is creating a new class instance. Also, the Sheet Activate is also creating a new instance. If we take a look at the command button click events, every time a user clicks on a button, the new instance of class is going to be created and a new session is started. So, what is the solution for this? The solution is that we need to create an instance of this class only once, so that at the beginning of our journey in our workbook, the class creates a new session and that all the events and all that we send to the Microsoft Azure will be recorded as one session, so that we can follow this user while he is using this application, this Excel workbook in one instance. In next video, we will change a little bit our code so that we can optimize this code, but also so that we can only once create a new instance of a class and create a new session, and so that we can track all the events that we send to the Microsoft Azure within this one session.